Stop.
Hi, Laetitia. Great to see you. Everyone, Laetitia Sonami is a sound artist, performer, and researcher based in the Bay Area. And she's been working and designing her own instruments for many decades. We're very pleased to have her here as part of the Grid Exposure and the AI Music Festival. Laetitia, welcome.
Yes, well, thank you, Vanessa. Here.
So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about your instrument. You spent many years playing with the lady's glove, an instrument of your own design. And I believe it was about 8 years ago that you created the Spring Spire. Why and how did you build it?
Well, so I used the ladies' glove for about 25 years, and I think uh, through all these years, I think my ideas about instruments and about control and about performance changed somehow. And also, I felt like the ladies' glove. I could have used it many more years, but I think I had reached a point where I felt like I knew what it was about. So I was curious to start completely new and with a completely new slate because the instrument that you make somehow guides you in a particular in an unknown direction. So I was very eager to explore. And so I took some of the features from the lady's glove that I thought had been interesting and worth implementing. And then I decided to also implement machine learning because I had tested it with David Wessel in the 90s, but at that time it was very cumbersome and it was very complex and just you need a big machine. It was just, not an easy solo artist touring system. And also, I had met Rebecca Fiebrink, who at that point was in Princeton, and now she's in England at the University of the Arts. And she had designed a machine learning, she had created a machine learning software called Wekinator. And she demonstrated it to me in like around 2012. And I thought, well, this is very interesting. So I'll make an instrument based on what she had shown me the software could do. So then I just started. It took a while, like the instruments, for me, instrument design, exactly with myself. I mean, with a lot of input from friends and people, but it's not like I go to a lab and say, build this. So it takes a long time. I started with a lot of different prototypes until I got to this particular one, which also could eventually change. But for now, that's what it is.
So something that you write about and you talk about when you're discussing the Spring Spire is that you've trained it to never learn, which is a very different approach to using AI in music. Can you talk a little bit more about that and the concept behind the instrument?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I trained it to never learn, but I definitely made sure it would not learn correctly. So it's interesting to train to not learn, but it at the end this a bit. I mean, I think the not learning was definitely at the root of the system. And the reason is that I think that when we build instruments, I mean, obviously, if you want to do very particular data analysis or data projection for whatever applications that people work with in AI, then I can understand. But in my case, I really wanted to create an instrument that let me explore some kind of unknown territories, or in this case, it's like synthesis. Some kind of with the glove, I had mapped it so that it would do certain things when I bent the finger, when I move the wrist, and all these things, and I could create all these relationships. But I kind of knew what it was doing, and what ended up being the most interesting is what it did that I was not really in control of because I had to adapt. So create an instrument that would some kind of go a bit in unknown spaces and force me to adapt and respond was something that I was very interested in. So that's why I use the springs. It's kind of a chaotic system. So the feature extraction is done on the audio that's generated with the springs. But as you can see, the springs kind of like go and they rest. So this ability to somehow go into unknown audio, unknown sonic spaces was something that I was very interested in. And it's one of my, one of the issues I have is I think that we often, as artists, musicians at least, there's been this whole idea of controller. You build controller, and because you have a perfect idea, and you're going to make sure that the controller does what you want. And I think that is great if you have a great great ideas. I don't have great ideas. So I'm always hoping that the machine is gonna, bring me somewhere a bit different because I'm not very interested in having the machine do what I wanted it to do because I think that uh, that's not what, for me, that's not what art is about. It's about some kind of exploring territories that we cannot really fathom.
That's beautiful. And it makes me think about some of the more interesting ways that people are talking about how they use AI in creative practice. So, you've talked a lot about the sense of the unknown and in some ways letting yourself be shaped by this practice and your practice kind of responding to that. How do you think that these kinds of tools, machine learning tools and AI will shape the future of creativity, or more specifically, the future of music making?
I think it's just one more, system that musicians use. And if you think of it, music has been shaped by the machines that we created. I mean, not always, but a lot of like what we have created, that comes from the machines. And so I think that in this case, AI would just be one more system that will allow us to go to certain elements. I think that one of the things that maybe it will allow us to do, good or bad, is that it allows us. I mean, one of the probably most efficient way of mapping to do mapping. And mapping, at least in the music that we create now, at least digitally, is like a very big issue. Like how do you um, control systems based on particular data. So whether it's just a fader or a knob, or it's a very complex system. So the fact that machine learning can use very large amount of data input to control a large amount of output without one going one this does that this does this, but creating a much more kind of a global control. I think that would allow us to some kind of link more to other data extraction systems. So for instance, we could maybe much more easily map world events or environments, or which people used to do with like a little light sensor or a humidity sensor. But now I think we can really map large systems to other systems. You know, that I can see is probably one, for me at least, one of the interesting feature that would allow us to connect worlds. We can connect different worlds in a much more complex way.
That's great. And then, are there any ideas that you have, or recommendations, or wishes that you have for, based on your experience, how you would want people to integrate these systems or use AI in creative practice?
Well, I always hope people are not going to use it to control. I mean, I think the whole idea of control is just so passe. But I think that people really want control, and that's puzzling. It's like you find it on all layers of society, the desire to control. And I think that in my case, I would hope that people who look into AI go into much more opening it up to some kind of unexpected, results. And so that's one of the things I would hope, is that don't use AI as an afterthought, to use it as the building block for exploration. Not like, oh, you did your whole thing, you have all your ideas, and oh, now I'm just going to implement AI so that I can control all these things. I would hope rather, like all machinery, all machines, all tools that we create, see what it can do and open it up to unknown spaces. So that's something that I think I would really recommend. Now, there's a lot of other issues with AI that I, obviously, like a lot of machines that we use, I think have implications, that do you close your eyes to this idea of AI as being somehow again very prevalent in society to extract data and control, society. How are women and AI? How does that relate? How is like all the relationship AI to to again control of people's life. So it's a question I have. I think that I haven't really explored it enough at this point and how to implement it in the work that I do. But I would kind of like think, how blind can you be, use a system that has a lot of different applications. And you can go, well, no, I'm just using it to make cool synthesis, No, so that's a part that I'm still, questioning on how to relate to the furthest, the broadest implication of using.
Great. Well, I think that's a thoughtful and provocative note to end on. So thank you very much for your time, Laetitia, and looking forward to the work that you create with the Spring Sprye moving forward.
Yeah, thank you.